Hello everybody and welcome to the next video. And in this video what we're going to be going over is extract the data. So taking the data that is available in AirDNA and moving that into the spreadsheet that we created in the last video. And this one's going to be, there's more to this one naturally. So I'm going to start off by first going through all the slides that I created where we go over best practices and things to note. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you what it actually looks like as we're going through. So when you do watch this video, okay, what I want you to do is write down each one of these best practices or take a screenshot or something, record it in some sort of way so that when you're going through and extracting the data yourself, you know what you can and cannot do, okay? Like what to take, what not to take. You'll understand what I mean when we actually go through it. So let's go into it. We're going to be using the AirDNA Market Minder tool to move the data from the website to the spreadsheet, one data point at a time. You already know that. That's what we're talking about. That's part of the process, okay? So when we get here, what we're going to do is these are going to be our best practices, right? We want to only record entire place listings. So for those of you who may not know this, on Airbnb, there's three different sections of ways that you can list a home. You can list it as a shared room, which is kind of like a hostel. You can do a private room where you have an additional room within your home that you rent out. That's actually how I got started. Or you can do entire place. And the reason and the entire place being the entire home, the guests get it to themselves. And the reason that I want to do just the entire place is because that's really the only way that you can make real money from an Airbnb. All the other stuff is just sort of like a side hustle. Unless you have a hostel business, then by all means go for it. But this course is meant for people who are trying to build an Airbnb business. And when you're doing that, you can't really do it based off of shared rooms. You can do it only with entire places. Okay, so we're only going to record the entire places. And then the next thing, a next best practice. You know what? I changed my mind on how I'm going to do this video. What I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how to make sure you're only recording entire places right now. So let's hop over to AirDNA, and it's I'm on the Market Minder product, right? We've gone over this already. I'm going to be using the map, and right on this right-hand side, this is where you can, if I select all of these things, that's what's going to show all of the different Airbnbs that are out there based on if they're private rooms, if they're shared rooms, or if they're entire places. So what we want to do is this one we want to remove, so we're no longer seeing shared rooms. This one we want to remove so we're no longer seeing private rooms. And this one we want to only look at which ones we want to record. And when we're getting started off, generally what you want to do is you want to start off with the smallest and go to the largest. But for the sake of this video, what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to record the 4 bedrooms just because there's less of them. So that's what you would want to do, okay? So that's what it means when we say just do the entire place. We're just getting the purple dots and we're going one by one. So that's how you can look at just the purple ones, okay? The entire place. So there's that. Now the next step here is to record each neighborhood individually in a new tab. So I touched on this a little bit in the last video when I was talking about creating the spreadsheet. What I'm talking about right here is like I said, the neighborhood. Now you can put them all in individual sheets down here and actually create a different tab for every single neighborhood. Another option as well would be to take this. So I'm going to copy this guy right here and say I'm going to add another one right here. So I'm just going to put it in right like that, okay? So you can clearly see this is separating everything from here and here. And what this does is you put in the name of the neighborhood where you're extracting the data. And then once you've gathered all that information from that neighborhood, you then add another line here, another row, and put the next neighborhood in there. If you know the neighborhoods, perfect, put the names. If you don't, then you can cut them off based off of streets, okay? So I'll show you an example of cutting it off based off of streets. I'm going to zoom in. This is Santa Monica. We've been looking at it, this entire time. And what I can see here, I can see a place called Ocean Park. For whatever reason, it's popping up twice. So these roads are what I like to call invisible borders, okay? You may have heard this before, may have not, but a road can really be an invisible border between two different types of neighborhoods. So as an example, where I grew up, there was one street, and on one side was the better side to live on, right? And on the other side, it was a little bit not as great to live on. And it's just how it is, right? It's just generally how it is. The houses are cheaper over there, they're more expensive over here. And so, if you're on this side, and even the way people grew up, like people were friends only on this side and rarely friends with anyone on the other side, when you're a little kid. So they're invisible borders, and that's really what changes between neighborhoods. Our roads is what kind of divides them, right? So what I would want to do here, just based off of the way that Santa Monica ends right here, and there's a road right here. The yellow ones are always highways, right? So there's a big highway right here, and there's another highway right here. So what I would do is I would call this neighborhood Ocean Park, and I would say that this road, which is Lincoln Boulevard, so I would say from Lincoln Boulevard to the end of Santa Monica to the ocean, and then up this Highway 10. That would be my little squared off Ocean Park place. And the way that I would put that in here is I would go right to the neighborhood and I would say Ocean Park, and then I would go the borders. So let's go. Borders is going to be ocean. Then I'll put a comma. We'll go Highway 10. Then we're going to go, what was it, Lincoln Boulevard, I believe. I'll double check afterwards. And then to end of Santa Monica, end of Santa Monica, right? So now I know, and if they get the right, yeah, Lincoln Boulevard. So now if I were to refer back to this after extracting every single last piece of data, if I refer back to this, I know that I just took the information that was directly within this little squared off area right here. And in my head, I know that's generally how things work. You can even tell that based off of the homes that are here, that this is probably its own little spot. So if you notice, there's none over here, right? But there's a bunch over here, and then there's only two over the highway and all the way over here. So, and mind you, these are only 4 bedrooms. This is telling me that this part of the neighborhood is built differently, right? And then it's also telling me that the closer to the beach, the more likelihood that there's going to be Airbnbs, which is probably saying that it's a better place to be. And then if you're on the other side of the highway, there may be a difference in the revenue that you can make based off of the exact same size, just because it's further away from the ocean, right? So little things like that come into play as well, right? So now I've got this neighborhood blocked off, and I would probably highlight this word right here. So I'm gonna refer to this always as Ocean Park, even if it's not Ocean Park. Okay, like I said, I'm not from San Diego. I don't know San Diego. I'm looking at it from the outside in, and this is how I would organize it in a way that would make sense to me. Okay, and that's what I want you to do as well. And now let's go back. The next best practice. Those are fun to say in a row. The next one is best to organize your information from allow you to show only 1 bedroom at a time. Use this feature and record. Okay, so I actually went over this already when I was talking about the entire place. I was talking about how you can record it using this information here, right? So if I hover over this, I can hide everything except for the one size room. What I was stating in that best practice was to do exactly that. Just hide everything other than the exact room size that you want to record, because we do want to record everything bedroom size by bedroom size. Okay, so right now we're just looking at the 4 bedrooms, right? So let's go back here. Next one is to only record Airbnb listings that have been available for over 300 days. I know this is a little bit blocked off by my guy. Oh, it's perfect. So you can still see it. So for over 300 days, guys, I cannot stress how important this one is. I know it's kind of hidden right down here at the bottom, but it is so important. When you hover over one of these Airbnb listings, right? When you hover over it, it's going to say days available. To explain again, what that means is it's AirDNA is recording the number of days that the home has been either booked, vacant, or blocked by the Airbnb host. And that's the number of days that this listing has been operating. The reason why this is so important is because AirDNA's algorithm actually has a little bit of an error, not every single time, but a lot of the times, where if the home has not gone through an entire year, okay? When you go through an entire year, you go through the high season and the low season. If it has not gone through that, then what it's doing is it's projecting what the revenue will be. So it'll say the home has been open for 150 days, right? And it'll say it's been open for 150 days, and and its revenue is 100,000. Well, the thing is what AirDNA is doing in this moment is their algorithm is saying, based off of how well this home did in the first 150 days, we're going to project that it's going to do the same over the remaining of the days, and this is what the revenue will end up being. That's not, we don't want that. You know why? Because if somebody opens up their home in the peak season and they do really well, the algorithm thinks they're going to continue to do that all the way right through the end of the year, and so the number is way off, right? And vice versa, if you start in the winter and you have a bad winter, right? Or sorry, non-peak season. So the thing is we want all of the homes that we're recording to be listed for 300 days or more. If it's like 299, sure, go for it. But the thing is 300 days or more is going to be the best accurate number that we can actually get, because it's gone through all the cycles, it's gone through all the seasons. So it has to be over 300 days to be considered credible information that we can then use. Okay, so as you can see on this one here, it has been up for over 300 days. So that's good, right? That's what we want to be able to see. So that's a good best practice that we want. So 300 days, can't stress that enough. Okay, moving on to the next one. The next thing we want to do is we want to list listings with the same number of bedrooms but not bathrooms should be organized separately, organized from largest to smallest. Okay, what I'm saying here is a 4-bedroom 3-bath should not be in the same section as a 4-bedroom 2-bath, and that goes the same for a 2-bedroom 1-bath and a 2-bedroom 2-bath and all the other combinations that you could possibly think of, because in very, very competitive areas, a listing with an additional bathroom generally does better. And what I've seen on average, it does about $20,000 more. So there's multiple areas in Chicago where if you have an extra bathroom, but you have the same number of bedrooms, you will make $20,000 more, which is insane to think about. You know, who would ever think that a bathroom would make you $20,000 more on average, right? But it does. It really does. The data shows it. There's multiple different places. I can get into it if you don't believe me, but it matters. And it really matters in highly competitive areas. And so when we're pulling all this information in, we want to make sure that we're separating these, because if we're putting 4-bedroom 2-baths in the same area as a 4-bedroom 3-bath, what's going to end up happening is you're going to get an average that'll be above what a 4-bedroom 2-bath can actually do and below what a 4-bedroom 3-bath can actually do, right? Do you see what I mean? So if I'm going to go pay rent to a landlord and it's a 4-bedroom 2-bath, I think that the home can actually do better than it really can, because I have it grouped with my 4-bedroom 3-baths. Okay, so you don't want to do that. You want to make sure that they're separated so you know the difference. And this isn't true for everywhere, okay? Like I said, highly competitive areas. This is a trend that I've seen myself, so I like to separate them. And if I do see a difference between the two, then I know I've done the right thing. If there's no difference, then so be it, and that's okay. You know, you don't have to worry too much about it, but make sure they're separated, okay? Now, the next thing, if an Airbnb listing does not open, do not record it, okay? So what I mean by that, I'm going to come over to AirDNA. When we're looking at this panel here, this panel gives us a lot of the information that we're going to need, right? So this little panel is this listing right here. That gives us a lot of the information that we need. And this little guy that keeps going from black to blue is the actual Airbnb listing. So if I click it, it's going to pop open the Airbnb listing. And it's going to show me the exact listing. And from here, we're going to gather more information. So there's actually going to be more things that we get from this listing. You need there are going to be times where you're on AirDNA, you're looking at a listing, you go and you click this, and it doesn't pop up to the listing page like this one has. What it does is it pops up to the Airbnb homepage. And when that happens, don't track that data. Do not record it. Don't put it in the spreadsheet. Just forget that it even existed, because that person is either not listing full time, which is not what we want to see, or they've been removed from Airbnb, or they stopped doing Airbnb. Whatever the reason is, we can't see the photos and we can't see the listing, which is a crucial point to the data. On this one, I can see that this home is put together extremely well. I can see it's an Airbnb Plus. I can see a lot of positives from it. And that's why I can see that it's doing so well, right? Almost 300,000. If I see a listing over here and it's saying that it does 100,000 and I can just see the photo, or maybe, you know, it's doing significantly less than all of the other ones in its area, but I can't see the photos. Maybe the guy who's hosting it or the girl who's hosting it just doesn't know what they're doing. And so it's just a bad listing, and that's why it's doing so bad. We don't want to record that information because it's going to pull down our averages, because we know we're not going to do that bad, right? We want to host professionally. We want to take good photos. We want to take, make the place look great. And we want to manage properly. So So if the listing does not pop open, we're not able to see what type of a host they are and how well they do things, or what their home actually looks like to get the comparables that we need. And so we just don't want to record it. We just, even if you think it's, a piece of information you want, just don't record it. So if it doesn't pop up, don't record it, which means that should be the first thing that you should do is click on this listing, click on the link to see if it actually pops up. And if it does, then start recording it. Okay. Now let's go back. Next one is, these are going to be the AirDNA errors to avoid. Okay, so there are some issues with AirDNA's algorithm. I've already mentioned one. We're probably going to review another one. But here's a good one. So if the listing has less than 20 reviews and has been operating for a year, it's most likely an error. Now this may seem a little bit confusing, but the thing is if you've been operating for a full year, so if it says 300 days, but then there's only 10 reviews, it's not a person who's actually been listing for an entire year. We really only want the people who are consistently managing their homes as a full-time Airbnb, because that's what we're going to be doing. So that's the only information that's useful to us, right? And there's a lot of people that put up their homes for when they go on vacation, or if there's a big football game that comes to town, or an event that comes to town, whatever it may be. They'll list their home just for that weekend, and then people will book it out and they'll make a bunch of money. The problem is that AirDNA has an issue sometimes with telling the difference between a book day and a block day. And so when people only do very odd weekends and things like that, it shows up kind of like those days are being booked. And so AirDNA is automatically assuming they are. And then you get these really big properties that seem to be doing extremely well, but they only have like 10 reviews. And it doesn't really add up, because you will always get way more than 10 reviews throughout an entire year, especially if you're making good money. I'll give you an example. I'm going to go to one right now because I know there is one in the investment section for Santa Monica. If I go to the top properties and I open this up here, you can see this guy right here, a 4-bedroom, 4-bath, 8 guests, Santa Monica. He says he's been doing $188,000 throughout this time period, and he only has 6 reviews. It's not how it works. This is not a real listing. They just rent it out here and there. And if I wanted to, I can open it up and we'll see if it actually brings us to the listing. It looks like it's going to, right? So the listing is going to be here. And then what I would do from here, if I really wanted to know even more, I would open up the calendar and see, does the calendar have a lot of random bookings throughout that time period? And if it does, then maybe they are doing it. But most of the time, and I haven't checked this, so this is going to be, random. So as you can see, none of these days are booked, right? And if I go to again, none of these days are booked. None of these days are booked. Now, if this was a regular Airbnb that was listed out normally, there would be bookings. There just would be, right? But you can see this person has it set up as the cheapest night is $2,300. And maybe they're doing that saying if we get rented, great, we'll let you rent it out for that amount. Otherwise, forget about it. And that could be the case too. Some people just don't need the money, but if you want to pay them a ridiculous amount, they'll allow it. But we typically would see some bookings here. And I'll bring up the other one over here that I say is a real listing, going for $1,200, and look in its calendar. And I honestly haven't checked this calendar, and you can see right away there's already a bunch of bookings for August. And if I look behind, there's another weekend booked out right there. And there you go. So that's still August. So September doesn't have any bookings. That seems pretty normal, but August does. So, and they're random. So this is how okay, that's a real listing compared to a non-real listing or a non-full-time Airbnb, right? To me, they're just non-real. Okay, so that's something to keep an eye out for. That's an error. Look for the reviews. If you see the reviews are really low, the revenue number is most likely wrong. Okay, no matter how bad you want it to be right, it's most likely wrong. Okay, and now the next one here is, if the listing makes significantly more revenue than its competition, it's most likely an error. Now, this is sometimes you're going to come across a listing that's just going to be way more than its competition, and you can tell because it's you're going to find the average is maybe around 80,000, but then this guy's doing 200,000, and it's what's wrong there? Now, most of the time, what's going to end up happening is you're going to look at the reviews, and you're going to see there's barely any reviews, and it's okay, well, it's one of those guys, right? So that's generally what's happening. Now, sometimes though, in the case of the ones that we're looking at right now, this one here that is doing 300,000 is a lot higher than all the other ones. However, it's got a lot. it's proved itself to actually be a real listing because of the number of reviews it has, which is 84. Its rating is through the roof. It's an Airbnb plus. It's a 4-bedroom, 3-bath right near the beach of Santa Monica, and it's an absolutely beautiful listing. Okay, so there's a lot of proof as to why this one does so well. And so what I'm saying there is, even if the average is 100,000, but somebody's doing 200,000, sometimes it is real, and they are just a luxury product in comparison to everybody else, or such a rare offering that they can gather that much more money than anyone else. And so that is a part of it as well. Okay, so now that we've gone through this portion here where we talk about all the different best practices, things to avoid when we're extracting the data, the next video is going to show you an example of actually extracting the data, where we're grabbing the points from, how we want to grab them, things like that. Okay, so I'm going to stop this one here, and then I'll see you in the next video.